George Lucas once said this about Akira Kurosawa.
So I didn't really experience foreign films until I found my way into film school. And at that point is when I was actually exposed to Kurosawa. And a friend of mine, John Milius, actually was a huge fan of Kurosawa's. And so whenever the film was showing, he'd say, "Oh, you got to come and see this. You got to come and see this." And after the first one, the first one I saw was Seven Samurai, and after that I was completely hooked. I said, this is really good. It's hard to really appreciate the true genius of Kurosawa, I think, until you've seen a few of the films, and then you've been able to see other films at the same time and be able to realize his visual style. My favorite of all time is really Seven Samurai. Then maybe Yojimbo, and then Akuru, and maybe Hidden Fortress at that. So it's not at the very top of my list, but I was impressed and I liked it. And it's really his visual style to me that is so strong and unique, and again, a very, very powerful element in how he tells his stories. I think he comes from a generation of filmmakers that were still influenced by silent films, which is something that I've been very interested in, having come out of film school. That the visual graphics and the framing and just the quality of the images goes a long way to telling the story and setting the mood, and you're not going to find really a lot of filmmakers that have the facile quality with the medium that Kurosawa had.
Lucas was heavily inspired by samurai films by Akira Kurosawa. The concept of the Jedi was influenced by them. The first couple of drafts of The New Hope were heavily inspired by his film, The Hidden Fortress. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this. Without Akira Kurosawa, we would not have Star Wars. In Star Wars DNA is Japanese culture, even if we would consider it to be Americanized or skin deep. So when Disney announced that they were making Star Wars Visions, an anthology series that would be anime stories from prolific animators like Studio Trigger, and be stories told in the Star Wars universe, it kind of feels like Star Wars has gone full circle, being inspired by aspects of Japanese cinema and culture, now anime, a Japanese form of media, being inspired by Star Wars. And after watching Star Wars Visions, I wanted to make a quick video on it because, man, I do love this series. I feel for the most part, this is the breath of fresh air Star Wars needed. We do have things like The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch, which I think are amazing stories. The one thing I will say, they're pretty much bogged down by nostalgia and feels like their stories have to shoehorn in canon Star Wars lore. With Visions, for the most part, they're stories that are, yes, affected and or set in the Star Wars canon, but it's not the center story or conflicts. Some shorts are set after Order 66, the fall of the Empire, and the defeat of Palpatine at the end of Rise of Skywalkers. But where the other stories have felt like they had to have stuff all these characters during these events, Visions makes semi-original stories of characters affected by these events, but aren't really part of them, besides a bizarre slice of life episode featuring Boba Fett and Jabba vibing to a pop punk song. All the characters in Visions are their own original characters. I think what I enjoy about this series is the fact that we are centered around Force users that are not related whatsoever to either the Skywalkers or the Palpatine, and also the way they are able to flesh out the concept of the Force and how it can be used. But I know there are going to be a ton of videos talking about that, and so I decided I wanted to focus this video specifically on the substance of the styles in this series. There is so much I just want to bring up because this isn't just a Star Wars series, but a love letter to anime and Japanese cinema. And I loved almost everything about this series, so let's talk about the substance and styles in Star Wars Visions. I want to start off by talking about some of the anime influences I noticed and I enjoyed. So part of these influences will be as a whole, but there will be parts that were episode specific style-wise. So let's talk about a specific genre of anime in some of these episodes. And the first being Slice of Life. Episode 2's Tatooine Rhapsody is less of an action-adventure you think of when you think of Star Wars, but a slice of life short about a Padawan who escaped Order 66 and is now in a rock band. As they try to save their friend from execution by Jabba the Hutt, they have flashbacks of their time together as a band. And it ends in an upbeat note, playing music like it was a K-On! Episode, and Jabba choosing not to execute his nephew, while Boba Fett is vibing and dancing in the background. This is probably to me the weakest of the episodes, but the fact that they took a risk in not being like the others, and this slice of life piece really reflects this series' willingness to push boundaries. This is probably the only specific genre of anime shift in the series, but I do want to point out that I was expecting most of these Star Wars to come off more like shonen battle anime shorts. But instead they feel more mature and could be stories found in a seinen magazine. Although I think the third episode, The Twins, produced by Studio Trigger, is probably the most shonen-y episode. By that, I mean it's basically a 10-minute long anime fight scene with the trademark Trigger design in action, which means frenetic and fluid battle motions. It is insanely fun and enjoyable to watch, and it is now in the top 10 favorite anime fights of modern anime next to Broly vs. Gogeta. The anime influence that really hit me while watching these shorts are Cowboy Bebop, the works of Hayao Miyazaki, and Astro Boy. So the reason I feel a lot of these shorts feel like they take from Cowboy Bebop is the fact that Star Wars is also inspired by Westerns. But where most of the Star Wars world also feels kind of clean and nice even though they're in the desert, even the places like Tatooine, the Bebop vibes I specifically feel from The Ninth Jedi and Lop and Ochoa. Their stories are set in the world either post-Rise of Skywalker and post-Revenge of the Sith. During these times, the landscape of the world is shifting and seems somewhat bleak. But the influences are in the architecture. In Lop and Ochoa, you see big buildings that look like they are from this era, but seem semi-futuristic with piping as well as a big bombastic futuristic stuff, showing the Empire slowly taking over, and in the use of dingy lighting and color. Plus the idea of ambiguity and morals being tinged in gray in a world that isn't so black and white. In Lop and Ochoa, Ochoa joins the Empire because she feels it is the only way to save their way of life, while Lop believes you don't need the Empire to do it. Both choose their path not out of malice, but for the sake of survival. In The Ninth Jedi, how the Force influences people isn't just good versus evil, but there's an actual legit balance. There almost feels like more ambiguity in the Force in this series now. All of these to me scream an influence of shows like Cowboy Bebop in their storytelling and aesthetic. One of the other influences I want to talk about is that of the works of Hayao Miyazaki. Films like Nausicaa Valley of the Wind and Castle in the Sky are big parts of this. Episode 4, known as The Village Bride, where a forest village that is close with nature being attacked and threatened by bandits who have brought back online separatist droids. The Miyazaki tones come from the planet itself. It has lush vegetation, beautiful skies, and fantasy terrain, mixed with semi-futuristic villages. It feels like it could be something out of a Miyazaki film, as well as the chief's daughter who has a strong connection with nature that only wants to see what is best for her planet. And in the short TV one, it centers around an adorable robot boy whose master is killed by a Sith Inquisitor and puts off his own dream of becoming a Jedi to bring back life on a desert planet. This allows him to have his dream of a Jedi come true when he manages to make life grow on the desert planet and allows himself to find the connection with the Force. In the shorts The Ninth Jedi and Lop and Ochoa, they embody a concept Miyazaki has always said about his strong female characters. Many of my movies have strong female leads, brave, self-sufficient girls that don't think twice about fighting for what they believe with all their heart. They'll need a friend or a supporter, but never a savior. Any woman is just as capable of being a hero as a man. I think these two shorts define what Miyazaki was talking about. Kara starts out unsure of herself and her place within the world, but as the short progresses in The Ninth Jedi, she has to protect the lightsabers made by her father. And as this short goes on, she finds out who she is meant to be, and her true connection with the Force leads her to the fight to defend what she thinks is right. While in Lop and Ochoa, the main character, a cute and adorable bunny girl named Lop, is an adopted daughter of a wealthy high class who only cares about bringing her family back together and will do what it takes to do so. She realizes when her sister has turned to the Empire because she believes that's the only way. Lop must go against her sister in order to try to save her and her family. These two stories to me have the spirit of what Miyazaki was saying in that quote. But there is one episode in particular that feels like a love letter to Osamu Tezuka's series Astro Boy, and that is the episode T0B1, which tells an adorable story of a robot who wants to be a real Jedi. The design and the aesthetics of this short just scream Astro Boy. I mean, look at the design of both TOB1 and Madoka. I mean, they look just like Astro Boy and Dr. Hiroshi. When I look at TOB1, his movements and mannerisms feel like Astro Boy would be moving around. So I spent a lot of time talking about the anime influences I saw and felt were part of what made Star Wars Visions such a treat to watch. But there is one thing that is extremely influential to not only Star Wars Visions, but the entire Star Wars series. That is samurai films. I said this in the beginning, without Kurosawa, we wouldn't have Star Wars. Star Wars Visions is the most definitely a love letter to samurai films and Akira Kurosawa's works. Every lightsaber duel feels like a dance, where each swing and clash creates more tension. This action keeps up in all the fights till the last strike, with the final fight scene in The Village Bride mirrors a scene in Sanjuro where two people face off and one slashes towards the other, killing them. But the short that is a love letter to Akira Kurosawa is the first short, The Duel, set in an alternate reality pulled from Japanese lore. But the way it is shot and colored feels like an Akira Kurosawa film. It's mostly in black and white color scheme, the samurai aesthetics, the story about a wandering ronin who is just traveling around when bandits attack a village. The short is him defending the village and taking on their leader. The movements of the sword fight and how the village is being defended and fought with just screams Kurosawa. I think Star Wars Visions is a beautiful series to watch. Some of them fall short to me in different ways, but what I can say is that it takes its time and respects not only the source material of Star Wars with love and care, but also shows love and care to the genre that it is using, which is anime, and the genre of film that was already influenced by, Japanese cinema and Akira Kurosawa. And that is the substance and styles in Star Wars Visions. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I was working on another script that I'm going to get back to, but I watched Visions and I was incredibly impressed by it. So I'm going to go back to working on my Raya vs. Mulan video because I have a lot of things to say. But as always, follow me on Twitter and get my bad hot takes. If you want to support me on my ventures by joining me on Patreon, the links are both down below. And as always, thank you for watching. And if no one's told you today, you are loved, you are cared for, and whatever you're going through, you've got this, cowboy.